Last time I made a video about New Jersey's diners, half of this state took it as an attack on their bloodline. The Summit Diner, the Clinton Station Diner with the 1927 train car bolted to it. Nobody argued with any of that. What people argued with was everything I left off. Somebody's aunt is still not watching my videos because of it. And they were right. We have more diners than anywhere on earth, and covering that in 10 spots is like summarizing the Bible with a bumper sticker. 10 more, no repeats, and we're going everywhere. Because the fastest way to start a fight in this state is to build a list where every entry sits above exit 14. We start with the dumbest, most beautiful feud in New Jersey food history. White Manna in Jersey City versus White Manna in Hackensack. In 1939, at the World's Fair in Flushing Meadows, an event selling America superhighways and robot butlers, one of the exhibits was a chrome building billed as the Diner of the Future. They pitched a hamburger stand to the public as an introduction to an exotic new concept called fast food. When the fair closed, a farm kid from Georgia named Lewis Bridges bought the thing, put it on a truck, hauled it to Tunnel Avenue in Jersey City, and opened it in 1946, selling 10-cent hamburgers. Then he opened 4 more and named all of them White Manna. Manna, as in the food God dropped out of the sky to keep the Israelites alive in the desert, which is a crazy level of confidence to have about a slider. And then Coca-Cola, who serviced the signs back then, brought one back with a letter missing. That's it. That's the origin of the greatest rivalry in this state, a typo. Some guy at Coke dropped an N, Bridges shrugged and said, yeah, all right, we're White Manna now, and that clerical error is currently a Jersey City historic landmark. 2 survived 40 minutes apart at war. Jersey City's is the actual 1939 World's Fair building, the one from the future, sitting on a truck route. Hackensack's opened the same year on River Street, tiny, packed, and perfect. Food Network put them head-to-head on a show literally called Food Feuds. Hackensack won. Jersey City has never once acknowledged this and never will, because their argument isn't we're better, it's we're first. And you can't beat that argument, you can only lose to it. The slider's identical either way. A 1-ounce ball of never frozen beef smashed into a griddle full of onions until it gives up, and you order 3 because 1 is a joke. But the best part is Mario Costa. Started there as a high schooler in 1972, bought it in 79 for 80 grand, sold it in 96 for $500,000. Then he found out the buyers were knocking it down for a donut chain, sued to stop it, and lost. So he bought his own diner back for more than he sold it for, and got it landmarked so nobody could ever try again. He paid a premium to unsell a building out of spite and love. Straight down to Camden County, because if I stack a video with North Jersey again, I'm getting letters. Ponzio's in Cherry Hill opened in 1964 on Route 70 at the old Ellisburg Circle. And it's the oldest restaurant in Cherry Hill, a wild thing to be in a town that bulldozed everything else it ever had. The Ellisburg Circle got ripped out in 1992 because traffic circles are a form of assault. The Garden State Racetrack, which their own directions still tell you to drive past, is also gone. Ponzio's has outlived the landmarks people used to use to find Ponzio's. It's a diner, a bakery, and a bar at once. But functionally, it's South Jersey's conference room, where the politicians and the developers and the guy who owns 11 car washes all sit 20 feet apart pretending not to listen to each other. Last October, the Courier-Post polled readers on the best diner in South Jersey, and Ponzio's took 35% of nearly 2,000 votes. It didn't win, it annexed the territory. Back up to Route 3, we reach the Tik Tock Diner in Clifton, where a sign has been giving you orders since before your parents met. Eat heavy. 2 words on a neon clock on a roof, and it might be the most honest advertising in American history. That came from Nick Ramondos, the original owner, and it was his version of welcome. Sit down, relax, order something with gravy on it. He turned hospitality into a threat, and the state fell in love with him for it. The Tik Tock opened in 1948, started by a Greek immigrant running lunch carts to office buildings. They rebuilt it in '77 for the Meadowlands crowds, then rebuilt it again in '94, and the '77 version didn't get scrapped. They drove it down to Route 40, where it's been the Maze Landing Diner ever since. This place has been reincarnated 3 times, and one of its past lives still holds down a job in Atlantic County. Then there's the clientele, which includes Seinfeld, Christie, and Cuomo. In 2019, Mick Jagger came in with the Stones before a MetLife show, had a Taylor ham, egg, and cheese, and said so publicly, meaning a 76-year-old British knight walked into Passaic County and casually picked a side in the Taylor ham versus pork roll war. They named the sandwich after him on the menu, so some guy from Wayne is ordering the Mick Jagger right now with no idea he's participating in history. Down to the shore, to a diner you've seen, even if you've never been inside it, the Roadside Diner in Wall Township. The Roadside sits at the old Collingwood Circle where routes 33 and 34 collide, and it's Silk City Diner number 4932, the 32nd one they built in 1949, driven down from Patterson and set on the asphalt like a briefcase. Original stools, original booths, a sliding train door, and a green dinosaur out front. Because sure, in 1994, Bon Jovi shot the cover of Crossroad there. In 2007, Springsteen used it in the video for Girls in Their Summer Clothes. Both of the men who define what this state sounds like independently looked at all 565 municipalities and landed on the same little diner car on a circle in Wall. That's quite the peer review. It closed in March of 2025 when the Garicari's family retired after 27 years and the state briefly lost its mind. Then Nick and Maria Callis bought it and had it open by July. And the Callises also own the Broad Street Diner in Keyport from the first list. The people running one of the best diners in New Jersey drove up the road and saved another one, and the reviews have been great. Welcome to Angelo's Glassboro Diner, a tin box that refuses to move. Angelo's opened in 1946 as the Glassboro Diner under a man named Angelo Tubertini. And 5 years later, they picked the entire building up and moved it a few yards up Main Street, which has to be the least ambitious real estate move in American history. Older folks called it the lunch wagon because the thing had an actual wheel on it. Rowan University has spent 15 years eating Glassboro alive, the whole downtown converted into a college town. And Angelo's, 20 stools and 6 booths and red awnings, roughly the footprint of a 2-car garage, is still sitting in the middle of it like a rock the river had to go around. The president of Rowan eats there, construction guys line up outside before it opens at 5 in the morning, and hungover 20-year-olds fall through the door at noon. And in 2014, when an electrical fire shut it down, the fire department knocked it out in half an hour and then helped haul the perishable food down the street to Lissio's Bakery, who opened their freezers for it. It was closed for 2 days. A town does that for a relative. This next one's a heartbreaker with a happy ending. The Bendix Diner in Hasbrouck Heights opened in 1947, and it sits on a triangle of land marooned in the middle of Route 17, northbound on one side, southbound on the other. 100,000 cars a day going past it. The name comes from Teterboro, which for a few years actually renamed itself after Victor Bendix, the aircraft parts guy. Teterboro eventually changed its mind, but the neon never did. If it looks familiar, it's because it's been in everything, from Jersey Girl to the Many Saints of Newark to a Beyoncé Levi's ad. Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd shot a Toyota commercial in it, which means Doc and Marty got breakfast on a median in Bergen County. But the real story is John Diakakis. John ran the Bendix, and John is blind. He'd bring your menus, take your drinks, walk the ticket back to his kids in the kitchen, carry your food out, and do the math on your check in his head, and most people never figured it out until he was halfway across the room. There's a documentary about him called Bendix, Sight Unseen. He's also a single father of 3 and a stand-up comic, obviously. In January of 2025, the town shut it down over a fire suppression system that had been a problem for years. His mother, the previous owner, had gotten sick through 2024 and died that November, and he worked every single day right up until her services. 78 years, taped shut. Then, Peter Mascoris and his family bought it. The people behind Jackson Hole in Queens, as featured in the movie Goodfellas. On December 30th, they lifted the Bendix clean off its foundation, split it in two, and started rebuilding it to look exactly the way it did in 1947. He said it was in the worst shape of anything they've ever bought, but they're doing it anyway to try and revive this classic New Jersey diner. Next is the Silver Coin Diner in Hammonton, deep South Jersey, on the White Horse Pike, in the blueberry capital of the world. Hammonton grows a serious chunk of this country's cultivated blueberries and is also, by percentage, one of the most Italian towns in America, which shouldn't work and completely does. And on the pike sits the silver coin, gleaming like a 1950s postcard somebody found in a drawer, parked dead center between Philadelphia and Atlantic City. So the crowd is farmers at 6 in the morning and people driving home from losing money at 4, and both groups order the same thing. The menu's where it earns the spot. There's a breakfast platter called the Silver Coin Special, priced as a joke about the area code: French toast, a hot cake, 2 eggs, sausage, bacon, and Canadian bacon on one plate. Then there's the Shermanator, 16 ounces of fried chicken on a Belgian waffle. And notice they didn't call it chicken and waffles. They named it after a person. Somewhere in Atlantic County, there's a Sherm, and whatever he did at that counter, he did it hard enough that they carved his name into the menu forever. Next, the Edison Diner on Route 1, and a joke the universe wrote by itself. The diner opened in 1952, and their original pitch is one of my favorite documents in New Jersey history because they advertised the place with deluxe accommodations, air conditioning, booths, jukeboxes, open late. That's the whole ad. You could get a table and functioning refrigeration, and people would tell their friends about it at church. Inside, the theme is Thomas Edison, who invented the light bulb 10 minutes down the road at Menlo Park, which is the entire reason the township is named after him, and there's a giant mural of the man watching you eat. The Edison used to be open 24 hours, but now it closes at 11. So a diner named after the guy who beat the dark, in a town named after the guy who beat the dark, in the state that invented the 24-hour diner, now turns the lights off at 11 o'clock on a Friday. Thomas Edison is spinning in his grave. But it's okay, Edison Diner. Your food is still fantastic. Next, the Club Diner in Bellmawr, and this one starts in 1946 with a horse. The Club Diner began as a railroad club car that Ralph and Edna Weed converted into a restaurant, and then, because they were maniacs, they had it pulled by horse around to local factories so guys could eat without leaving work. That was the business model. A train car dragged around Camden County by a horse, delivering lunch to men in steel-toed boots. DoorDash burned $11 billion reinventing that, and it still isn't as good. In 1972, they trucked in a second diner from Pennsylvania and settled down permanently, and 3 generations of Weeds worked that room. And it's South Jersey to the bone in a way North Jersey does not comprehend. Scrapple is on the breakfast menu, not as a novelty or a bit, but as an option, sitting right next to pork roll like their peers. They used to run 24 hours too. Now it's 7 to 10. But the room's still there, the portions are still borderline insulting, and the burger is exactly as good as it needs to be, and not $1 fancier. And we finish in Warren County at Blairstown Diner, a place that accidentally became a horror landmark and has been committed to the bit for 45 years. The Blairstown Diner opened in 1949 on Route 94. Farm country, the water gap up the road, stone arches on Main Street, nothing happening. Then in September of 1979, a first-time director named Sean Cunningham rolled in with a script called Long Night at Camp Blood, shot for a month around Blairstown, Hardwick, and Hope, and released it as Friday the 13th. Camp Crystal Lake is Camp No Be Bosco, a real Boy Scout camp in Hardwick still operating today, and the lake where Jason drowns is Sand Pond, and the diner where Steve Christie drinks coffee and flirts with a waitress while every person he employs is being murdered 6 miles up the road. That's the Blairstown Diner. Same building, still open, still serving. That movie cost $500,000. The franchise has done north of $500 million. And the diner did not get precious about it. Every Friday the 13th, people drive in from 3 states. The town runs screenings and a costume contest, and the diner keeps a guy in a hockey mask on the payroll. They call him their resident Jason. Nobody designed that. Some guy in 1979 just needed somewhere cheap to film a scene where a man drinks coffee. So that's 20 diners across 2 videos, and I'm fully aware I still haven't gotten yours, which is the point. We have more diners than anywhere on the planet, and we're quietly losing them. The Bendix got taped shut and is still in the process of coming back. The Roadside almost went. And the Shamong Diner out in the Pine Barrens closed at the end of 2023 and is being turned into a cannabis edibles facility, which might be the most 2020s sentence ever said out loud about New Jersey.